you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night?
Welcome to the SLUSH podcast, the only place on the internet where we cover Dragon Ball to baby soothers and everything in between.
Okay, so we're back. I don't even know what episode we're on. What episode are we on, Sully?
This should be actually episode 6. Today, we're talking everything in Star Wars that we know.
Right.
Star Wars.
And we've got Cora here this time.
Hey everyone, I'm Cora, Matt's wife. I'm here to give my input on the lovely Star Wars.
Well, ironically, Cora was supposed to be here the whole time doing this with us, but she is a new mom, and Bennett literally would have a meltdown almost every single time we'd done a podcast, or we just got him asleep, so we couldn't really wake him back up. So I've been doing baby chats on the side with Cora, which I'm thinking Cora will probably eventually end up doing a bunch of without me, because she's going to interview a lot of other moms and folks involved with that. But yeah, Sully, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. Overall, I'm just glad to see that we got the whole squad here.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, I'd like to congratulate you guys on Baby Talk. It's actually, like, so successful compared to, like, our other episodes.
People love babies. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a thing that a lot of people feel like they have to navigate alone. So hearing other parents' experiences, I think, is really popular.
I have Ben on my phone here right now. We're just waiting.
He looks so funny when he
I know.
sleeps.
It looks like we just knocked the baby out and threw him down, and he's just fucked up.
He's, like, completely out cold, like...
Yeah.
So we do on baby chats. But yes, anyways. So before we dive into Star Wars, I thought it would be worth noting that since we started talking about Turok Dinosaur Hunter, I think it was on the pilot episode. Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, we mentioned it in, like, 2 episodes. Like, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah,
don't worry, guys. In the
it's
next
gonna
episode,
happen.
we didn't talk about it.
But I did track down the Turok Dinosaur Hunter comics. So I'm going to read them. Cora's going to read them. We're going to force Cora to read them probably. And Sully's going to read them. And we're going to review those compared with the video games and some history of Turok Dinosaur Hunter. Why the hell not, right?
We're going to do a whole episode just on Turok.
If we can do that, that would be actually pretty awesome, I think. I'm totally down.
I thought it was going to be a running gag. We just mentioned Turok and never really touched on the subject.
That's why the pressure's on to do a good Turok Dinosaur Hunter episode. But yeah, anyways. Okay, so Star Wars. How do we talk about Star Wars? Because I could talk about Star Wars till the cows come home, but like, how do you guys want to talk? Like,
Let me start.
Okay.
Because I know exactly where we should start.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So everyone is aware that episode 1, 2, and 3, lots of Star Wars fans had issues with them. Correct?
True.
This is a pretty common...
Yeah, when they first came out, like, especially
Exactly.
1 and 2, people were not impressed.
Yeah.
Right. However, I think that the Star Wars franchise has redeemed themselves by making Clone Wars and other content within that era of Star Wars. So it kind of fills out the stories a lot.
It's true.
And when you rewatch episode 1, 2, and 3, they're actually a lot better now that you've watched Clone Wars and other content like that.
So much
Thoughts?
better. Well, Sully, have you seen Clone Wars?
I've seen the Clone Wars movie.
Oh, Jesus.
Sully!
Yeah.
Shame on you!
I knew this was going to come up.
Clone Wars is actually a huge part of the Star Wars franchise, in my opinion. I think this might be an unpopular opinion, but in my opinion...
This is a hot take.
Yeah, this is a hot take.
I'm coming in hot first episode.
You need to be, in order to be a true Star Wars fan, you gotta watch Clone Wars, because there's a lot going on in there.
Oh, that hurt.
Honestly,
there's so much development in characters, especially Anakin.
Yes.
And how can you watch Ahsoka without watching Clone Wars?
I don't even know what people... how do they know what's going on? Do they even know who Bo-Katan is? Or, like, all these...
I guess I'll be the normie here, where I've only watched the movies. I
That's
never really
okay.
watched. I never really watched. Like, I've watched Mandalorian. That's as far as I got. I've only watched the first season Mandalorian.
It's a great
And
first season, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's as far as I go with my TV show knowledge outside of the movies. So don't worry for people who are like, "Yo, I'm not sure a lot of Star Wars. I'm your guy."
And
Maybe.
that's a whole. Okay, we should just get this out of the way before we go any further because I feel like there's so much content now for Star Wars that there's gonna be diehard fans who've only seen the original three movies and would consider those the only Star Wars things that exist. I think that there's people who hate the prequels like to death and would consider them not part of canon at all. But I know people who love the prequels because that's their Star Wars, love them to death, even without Clone Wars.
Can I just say that people who think that the prequels aren't part of Star Wars or aren't canon are completely false because guess who did the prequels? George Lucas, the guy who actually created Star Wars.
True.
So those fans just need to not.
Yeah,
Well-
because I mean, at the time when like Star Wars was coming back out of like episode
Yeah,
6, I think like Star Wars really, unfortunately, had like a really toxic fan base at this
Yeah.
time.
I agree.
Yeah, because the amount of harassment they gave the actors and everything during the first two movies
Yeah.
was unprecedented and uncalled for, and I mean, right now the Star Wars fandom has become a lot more tame, but at the time they were a pinnacle of like how bad you can be for a fandom. It was
What happened?
Oh, people lost their shit about the kid who plays Anakin. They hated him. I remember with a fiery passion. Even the guy Hayden Christensen who played him in Episode 2, people hated how whiny he was. People went bananas about it. And I remember reading this quote from George Lucas, who's like, "I just feel really bad for Hayden because he played the part exactly how I told him to play it. I wanted him, to be the angsty, misunderstood teen because that's what it's like when you're in, your late teens. You're angsty and, not so Darth Vader-y yet." But Ewan McGregor still holds up, I think, in all of those. Like, totally. He killed it as Obi-Wan, in my opinion.
He was definitely the best character out of the prequels
Yeah.
in general.
He was so good. But then there's, okay, not to completely fly off topic here, but so there's also fans of the sequel trilogy, people who love them, and that's their new Star Wars. People will die on The Last Jedi, like that hill. Like, they will die on it.
It's so bizarre.
I know, but there's also people who hate the sequel trilogy and wouldn't consider those canon. So I'm wondering if we'll see a thing happen in 20 years or 15 years where people accept the sequel trilogy because they'll fill in a ton of gaps with the story, like Snoke and all that. So I feel like it's still cooking, the sequel trilogy, even though I feel like, in all honesty, The Rise of Skywalker is a goddamn mess of a movie. Like, even
What was
if
the first one called?
That one's The Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. All right.
I like The Force
trying-
Awakens. And then we have all the TV shows now. There's the animated TV shows, like Cora was saying, that tie all of the prequels together really well. Like, anybody who doesn't like the prequels, I would recommend them to watch all of Clone Wars. But it's a huge watch because there's like, I think 7 seasons. And Rebels ties in with Clone Wars and also ties everything together leading up to
I do
the
want
New
to
Hope.
note it is a big watch. However, once you get started, you're hooked.
Yeah.
You just can't stop watching it. You'll watch like episode after episode after episode in a row. So
So I obviously, as the only movie watcher here, so with fans who like not too interested in like animated TV shows in that kind of aspect and whatnot, even like the newer shows,
Which is fair.
yeah, even like with all the new movies, I think there are some that might been announced, like with like more Rey Skywalker, whatever,
Yeah.
Palatine, whatever. For us over here, speaking for us, how would you think like the best way to approach like a lot of things? It's just only from watching the movies in general, even out of order.
But
I personally think that the first step is to watch Clone Wars because there's a lot going on there that would give you background information for some of the other things that have been created.
yeah,
So, characters that you see in some of the other live action TV shows, like Ahsoka and like Mandalorian, you'll have some of those characters that you'll have previously seen in Clone Wars.
they're
So when you
introduced in Clone Wars too. Like that's where they
exactly,
started.
yeah. So once you see them in Clone Wars, when you go to watch these other shows, you'll know exactly who they are.
Even Cad Bane. I was wondering.
Bennett.
Oh yeah.
Bennett's waking. I think he needs to be fed. I'm gonna pop off now, and I might return. We'll
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Anyways,
Okay.
thanks for popping by, Cora. Hopefully, you come
Yeah.
back.
I'll let you know.
Good luck. So sorry.
Okay. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Since Cora's now gone, I was gonna ask another question about like just obviously it's from the TV shows and the movies. There's a huge discrepancy for a lot of modern audiences that can't get into animated shows.
I know.
So, even if just someone just watching just live action shows, would you still consider that a good experience, even if they refuse to watch the animated shows?
Well, it's interesting. It's kind of an experiment that I've watched unfold with a guy at our work, Justin. Justin's not really seen any of the animated stuff, and he watched Mandalorian and he watched Ahsoka, and I don't understand. For me, I don't know what it would be like because I know all of these characters who were main characters in Ahsoka and Mandalorian, and if you don't know their backstory, I don't know how it would have the same weight to the story, but the people making the shows, the live actions, must understand that people haven't seen these animated series. Like, a lot of adults aren't going to go back and watch the Clone Wars because the Clone Wars movie, I think it's from like 2007. It's like
Yeah.
a little kids movie. Even season 1 and 2 of Clone Wars are little kids TV shows. Like, there's nothing really adult going on. I mean, you could have some people digging really deep trying to say maybe there's some stuff, but it gets really serious near the end of the Clone Wars to the point where I think that season 7 of Clone Wars, the last 4 episodes, is probably the darkest, most serious Star Wars I've seen so far, in all honesty. But that's the beauty of it. I guess it just depends. It's like Fight Club. You're going to just choose your level of involvement. So you could watch the live action shows without seeing the cartoons, and they could be pretty cool. Or if you really want to, do a deep dive into the whole story and really get a grasp for what the hell's going on, I would highly recommend watching the animated series for sure. For sure.
So
That
highly
answer?
recommended, but kind of, yeah. I'll take it as an answer because even there's obviously just so there's still a lot of folk who like have discrepancies on animated TV shows.
Yeah.
I guess it brings back another aspect of Star Wars. I think that's just been lost to time now, because a lot of it just became retconned or just not even available anymore. So a lot of the old Star Wars comics.
Yeah, like that's the thing. I have some of the comics. I actually have one signed by Darth Vader next to me himself. He's dead now. David Prowse, who's also in Clockwork Orange. Very strange.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Very, very strange. The Marvel ones, it's weird. They're starting to pull some characters out of retirement that would be considered like the extended universe or the that were gone. Like Thrawn, that whole series was gone, and now he's in it now. They pulled him back out of the retired extended universe that they said wasn't canon anymore. Now Thrawn is canon again. So it's weird. Some stuff is coming back from the comic books and the novels. I don't know like what order they're picking them to come back in and like what has caused them to bring them back. But like, have you seen Ahsoka yet?
I like I said, I've only seen Mandalorian.
Oh, you haven't seen any of the
Like
wow.
I've only seen the first season of Mandalorian. That's how far my knowledge of Star Wars goes as other movies.
Well, if I could erase everything out of my brain, if I could go back before I saw Clone Wars or anything like that, I did not like the prequels that much. I like Revenge of the Sith. I thought that was probably the best of the prequels.
Yeah, that movie is actually probably one of the best Star Wars movies in
Yeah,
general.
I agree.
Yeah.
That I thought that was a pretty good one. Like, there's some weird, corny parts in it, like there is with all the Star Wars. But I think out
It's
of the
kind of
prequels, it was the best.
I think it's so weird because I think like the pre I'm going to give a visual example, YouTube watchers, but audio listeners I'll describe it. It's like a kind of like a car, like kind of swiggly in the road. It's kind of losing its footing, and in the middle, kind of just kind of flips over. It kind of bounces a lot of the times. It's kind of loses its footing, doesn't know where it's headed. Then all of a sudden, it falls off the cliff, but then it lands perfectly on the road, and then near the
Yes.
finish line, it just becomes steady again, and then bam, first place. It becomes a huge hit. Like.
It's
That's
because
like
everything that people wanted to see happen finally happened in the third movie. Like, people who were tuning into the Star Wars prequel didn't think that they would have like a 9-year-old Anakin Skywalker as a slave on Tatooine saying yippee and things are wizard and winning pod races, and the 14-year-old queen, having
yeah,
feelings. I don't know. It gets,
it's like this is Darth Vader. Are you kidding
yeah,
me?
some of it's pretty far reaching. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Like, once I saw Attack of the Clones in the theater, I remember I dressed up for it. It was 2002. No, it was year 1993. Yeah, it was 2002. I was in grade 12, and I hated that movie. I left, and I absolutely hated it. I was like, this is probably the worst Star Wars movie I've ever seen. Do you hear that? It was Cora.
Anyways, go on.
um, so yeah, I left Attack of the Clones absolutely hating the movie and so disappointed. I thought it was so stupid because Dooku isn't even introduced till near the end of the movie, and he's supposed to be the main bad guy because you don't know what the hell is happening with Jango Fett. He's the clone, and Boba Fett's a clone of Jango Fett, but Jango Fett's a template for all of the clones in the Clone Wars. Like,
Also, he's his dad for some reason.
yeah, it didn't, like, some of it was like, what the hell is going on here? Because people up to that point loved Boba Fett. Like, he was this badass bounty hunter. Nobody really knew his backstory, but there was enough comic books, novels, tons of lore that people had just made up to fill in the gaps. And now he's just an unaltered clone of Jango Fett and all of the clones in the Clone Wars. It just, I don't know. Even saying it out loud is ridiculous. Like, what the hell was George Lucas doing there? I don't know.
It is bizarre on where his mindset was at the time.
Yeah.
It kind of, you know what I like to think is like, especially the first two movies where he just really wanted to play in this universe again because now we have better cameras, we have blue screen and green screen, better
Yeah.
CGI. I guess he was really trying to see the extent of what he can play with in the universe
Totally.
of Star Wars. And
Yeah.
I think it really shows in the first two, especially the first one with pod racing. Yeah.
Oh man,
Uh,
like the pod race is awesome. Like every time I've watched that movie, I'm like, this is crazy that this came out in 1999 because it looks just as good, if not better, than a lot of the CG that's out now. Like, it's pretty awesome.
It's kind of weird, right? Because I think it's like 1998 to like 2004. There's a weird era where CGI was either good, or like really really good, or really really bad.
I agree.
And there's very few movies that did, and even like some like other branches to another series, like Lord of the Rings, their CGI is actually like so crazy. A lot of it's aged so much better than their future installments. For some
I
reason.
know. When you watch The Hobbit, it's like, what happened? Like, why
It's like
is it looking worse?
yeah, it doesn't make any sense, especially with like how they like have the orcs now CGI'd instead of how they used to do before.
I know. It's so disappointing to see. But when you watch episode 1, the battle droids still look pretty goddamn real. Like, it's crazy. Like, the Gungans, they look like shit still.
Yeah.
But, like, the stuff that's supposed to look like rigid mechanical things, like, they look pretty good still. That's why the pod race looks so good, I think, is all the pods look real. The whole backgrounds are completely CG'd, which is nuts. Remember watching the making of, and they were like, we didn't know like where we should photograph it, so we just made it. And it's like, that's insane, because if you think about it, they would have shot that movie in like 1996 or 1997, and they would have done CG for like 2 years and mixes. So they did all that like back when Smash Mouth was like number one on the charts. Like it doesn't compute almost in my brain, and I was there for it. So yeah. But
Yeah.
what's your favorite? Here's a random question I'm just throwing out there. What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
So it's weird because I think Revenge of the Sith is my all-time favorite
Oh
Star
wow.
Wars movie. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just think the way they ended it, and it just felt like a natural connection and a natural ending to
Yeah.
like how they should put the story. It was a bit of it was still a bit weird, but I mean, most of it was still weird at the time, anyways. And even when you look at old Star Wars, a lot of it's still weird.
Oh man,
So it's
Luke's
so
sister. Like what? I
yeah,
don't
he
think there's
kiss
any way they planned that. Like
yeah, well, they kiss, and then in the next episode, they're like, "Oh, to find out they're brother and sister." Then they don't acknowledge it really, and they just kind of ignore the fact that they even kissed.
it's just too strange. I remember when I was watching Return of the Jedi, and I was like, okay, I feel like we could have done something differently here. But that's the strange thing that I've noticed about Star Wars is all of the weird things that people complain about. Years later, we're like, that's so silly. I just accept it. It's like in Revenge of the Sith when Darth Vader's like, no, at the very end. I remember people were
No.
cringing so much in the theater, but it's so ridiculous or that it becomes iconic that it's so ridiculous. Like I've seen memes of Anakin saying, "Now this is pod racing," so many times, or "This is where the fun begins." I've seen
Hello
those
there.
everywhere. Hello there. Although he does say that in A New Hope. Um, uh, but yeah, I think all of the cheesy strangeness of the prequels has become like kind of iconic, like corny gold now to our generation because it's great.
Yeah, it just circles around to being like a bad movie to like a fun bad movie to watch.
Yeah, totally.
Like yeah, yeah.
And I think if my recommendation is if you watch Clone Wars, you will never ever watch the prequels the same again because they make it so much better. Like Attack of the Clones is a weird movie, but after you've seen all of the prequel, the Clone Wars TV series, it ties everything together so well. And if you like Revenge of the Sith, if that's your favorite Star Wars movie, you will love the ending of Clone Wars because it goes right up to the end. Like they redo a little bit of Revenge of the Sith in Clone Wars animation style because every episode they're like they have an announcer and it's like a wartime propaganda video, but it's the Clone Wars and it's this guy being like, "Oh, the separatists are attacking the blah 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 blah, but the Jedi are blah blah blah," and the way he says it, they show this like montage of what's happening. And on the very end of the Clone Wars, after 7 seasons, they recap Revenge of the Sith and they reanimate it identical to the shots and the actions that are happening. And you actually find out what happens elsewhere in the Star Wars universe when Order 66 happens. And it's so good. Like, man, you gotta see it. It's so good. I feel like we should do another episode sometime where you've seen these because it's so worth seeing. I would put money on it that you will love it. I think you'll love the ending of Clone Wars for sure. Anyways, I completely went off topic. What's your
I mean,
favorite thing about Revenge of the Sith?
so Revenge of the Sith, because okay, so this is I technically knew everything was gonna happen because the way was introduced to Star Wars, I was introduced to Star Wars via Lego games. Because
Oh,
Lego Lucas Arts had like a rights did rights for Lego games to make their things, and they did the entire Star Wars story in the prequels and in the old trilogy in Lego. However, I think the greatest storytelling they've ever did with the Lego games, because guess what? They don't technically spoil a lot of things. 'Cause a lot of times it's all goofy deaths. Nobody like, and at that, nobody talks in the Lego games. They're just grunts. The
really?
whole, yeah. So it doesn't actually tell you anything what's going on or
I
what's
did
supposed to be
not know
happening.
that. That is
So,
bizarre.
so when I was watching the prequels, like, oh, that's what's supposed to be happening. This is what they're talking about. But a lot of it's just cheesy jokes and whatnot. And then
That's hilarious. I love that you learned about all the Star Wars movies through the Lego games.
yeah, that's because it's so funny because I remember playing the Lego games with the prequels, and then I was like, oh my god, mom, I want to watch Star Wars, and she's like, really, that old movie? Why? You know what? Whatever. I haven't watched it in a while either.
And she
So
loves Avatar. I'm so shocked.
I mean, she does love Star Wars. She just doesn't love it as an extent as many other series.
That's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Star Wars is
So
kind of
sorry, Mom. We're calling you on your taste here.
if she watches our podcast, she better come on sometime. I think that Star Wars is also the same as like, you know, what's the show that I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this? The dragons and the House of the Dragon. What is it called?
Oh,
Game of
you mean
Thrones.
Game of Thrones?
I've never seen it ever.
I
And-
swear to God, if you're gonna say Dragon Ball, I was like, what are you doing here?
No.
no.
The thing is, to me, Game of Thrones is so big that I almost feel like I won't see it because, and I feel like that's the way Star Wars is with some people. Is they're like, nah, there's a bunch of shit now I have to watch, and like I don't really want to do that. Or the MCU movies, like there's a lot of movies you have to see to get that whole story, and it's kind of like daunting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a
I
lot of
get
stuff
it.
you have to. It's a lot of stuff you have to watch.
Yeah, I get
And
it. I get it.
That's why I really haven't took like a deep dive because even like hearing you and Henry talk about it at work, I was like, I haven't watched Rebels, The Clone Wars, or anything. So I'm not gonna
Rebels is
be,
great.
I haven't watched any of this stuff to even understand a lot of the characters that pop in Mandalorian and Boba Fett, which is just season 3 of Mandalorian, right? From what I heard.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. There's 2 episodes where there's at least one episode where there is no Boba Fett. It's just the Mandalorian. But I mean, to be fair, the episode is called The Return of the Mandalorian, and it's the best episode of the season. And Boba Fett's not even in it.
That's so sad.
Even the Darksaber is from Clone Wars, and it's a main thing in Mandalorian now. So I don't know how people know what the hell is going on, but I love that they're watching them still. They're just like, you know what? I'm gonna go with it. There's a Darksaber. It's a dark lightsaber. A Mandalorian Jedi made it. All right, I'm in. It's like they don't even care. They don't even care. It's awesome.
Yeah, they just kind of just made it for the fans at this point.
Yeah.
For people who've been really like involved in the series for so long.
And that's what I think is wrong with the sequel trilogy is they completely didn't use any of the material that people worked so hard on for the Clone Wars to connect episode 1 through 3, 4, 5, and 6. You know, it's disappointing. I don't know why they did that, because I feel like they really fucked up part 8 and 9. Just because, I don't know. I feel like Snoke, that whole thing with Snoke and Palpatine returning. I mean, come on. Palpatine returning. What do you think of that?
So I guess I'll encapsulate like the entire sequel trilogy from you here, because The Force Awakens I think is a really strong movie up until the ending. I was not really a big fan of the ending
agree.
myself. I was like, oh, I don't know which direction this is going to go anymore, because it really built up Finn to be like one of the biggest characters in the series. And then unfortunately in Last Jedi it really doesn't do that at all.
Yeah.
With Finn, he becomes completely sidelined in a story of B plot that goes nowhere.
I honestly, that was my biggest beef with The Last Jedi, is they completely derailed his whole character. He was on such a unique trajectory of as like a defunct stormtrooper. Like that's a story we didn't hear, even though it was kind of a soft reboot of Star Wars. And then in The Last Jedi, they just kind of were like, I don't know, like he was kind of just a side character, and they went to that Canto Bight fucking gambling planet. And I've seen reviews on YouTube where people are like, it's like the prequels, people will like that someday. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ever gonna like it. I'm sorry. It's fucking Rose. She goes nowhere, her character. Oh my god.
Finn's whole character and all of her characters in that side plot just end up going nowhere. Even their whole mission goes nowhere.
Oh my god.
Their objective goes nowhere.
But other people would say that's the whole point of the movie. It's like, all right.
I do agree with one point in the movie, like because I think the most interesting part of the movie was with like between Kylo and Rey. Their relationship and the way that it was going up was so darn interesting, and that's what really kept me in the movie.
There was lots of cool stuff like that. Even Luke training. I like that Luke was on the island alone. Other people who were like, Luke wouldn't do that. It's like, well, why wouldn't he do that? You know? I thought it was interesting.
It definitely is weird because because obviously I'm just talking about Kylo and Rey here, but even with Rey, if you look back on the other trilogies, right? Luke, obviously he came from not just becoming a mechanic and then training under Jedi, become like a huge fighter pilot, and even one of the best Jedi masters later on. And even Anakin Skywalker going from just a simple pod mechanic and racer to becoming a Jedi Master, and then his son followed him. And then
Mm-hmm.
Rey never really had anything like that precisely.
Yeah.
And even with the training and whatnot, I guess there wasn't really anybody there to really quote unquote train her, anyways. Because even like the way obviously Luke is like tapped out. I don't be Luke's character. I don't really mind in that movie, but I do really feel like it just kind of felt that Rey's character just got like all the gifts in life without really trying hard for
I
it.
know, but now they just kind of say in part 9 that it's because she's cloned from the Emperor's blood, right? Like, that's the whole thing. They're like, she just inherited all of this, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
and in Last Jedi, I really liked how the emphasis that like this is what I didn't really like. This is why I actually just hate 9 more than 8, because the way they emphasized like how Kylo did so much research on her backstory. Like, you came from a family of slaves. You
Yeah.
are nothing. And I feel like they really should have drove that fact a lot harder in Rey's backstory to really emphasize like how well someone can come from nothing to hero,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
But
That would have been awesome.
yeah, because it really felt like a good trajectory of like there is no set in foot chosen one. 'Cause I mean, this is kind of trope in like most like kind of hero stories, but in part 9 they made it like, oh, this was actually destined to happen. Palpatine's back. Oh my God,
Yeah,
Kylo
so
Ren's no longer
bad.
the villain.
Man,
If
that
Kylo
sucked.
if Kylo Ren actually took the helm as the villain in part 9, I think it would have been way more interesting
Oh
than
my
the.
God. I know they're never going to do it, but it would be so cool if they just undid everything in part 9 and just but that's the problem now. It's there forever. It's too big of a movie for them to ignore. It'll never happen. It's just it's really disappointing. Every time I I watch this guy on Screen Crush, this YouTube. You ever seen Screen Crush? Um,
Never heard of them.
Oh my God, they just kind of just find all the trivial stuff in movies or episodes and make videos. It's very interesting. And anyways, the running joke that I've seen for every Star Wars episode this guy does is he'll be like, "But let's not forget this one scene," and it'll cut back to fucking Poe Dameron, and he's like, "Somehow Palpatine returned," and then it cuts back to him as the host every time, and he's like, "Whoops, not that clip," and he does it every single episode with Star Wars, and it's hilarious because it's fucking terrible.
It
It's
doesn't
so
make
bad.
It's like the worst opening red like line in part 9. Somehow Palpatine returned. Like,
Oh
you
man.
couldn't just explain any more better than that. Like, oh my God, it really just
Yeah.
felt like J.J. Abrams was like, oh my God, this is not how I thought the story was gonna go. I really had to like pick it up the way I thought it was gonna go. Ryan Johnson, what the fuck?
Well, I think that when they got J.J. Abrams back, people liked The Force Awakens. Like, it was received pretty well. Like, I don't really ever visit Rotten Tomatoes to gauge whether or not I'm going to watch a movie, but after I have watched a movie, I'll visit Rotten Tomatoes just to see the bullshit, to see what the audience or critic, because some of them are pretty questionable. But people generally seem to like The Force Awakens. The divide on The Last Jedi is astounding on
Yeah,
there.
critics love it, audience hate it.
Yeah, um,
Honestly, I take audience score more seriously than
totally.
like, because critic scores can be paid and they can also just be like differential, and also just cinephiles, if you will, who've
Yeah.
only watched like independent movies,
Well,
who
we
like
are the audience. I'm not a movie critic. I mean, sure, I sound like one right now, but I mean, I don't give a shit about what the critics think. Like,
yeah.
we
So
we're the people
wh-
that it's made for.
yeah, whether a movie is good or not obviously is depending on the audience.
Yeah.
It's even like also another franchise where Godzilla versus Kong did so well, because the freaking technically, like, the story wise, it's a horrible story. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
really
I don't
make
even
any sense.
remember the story, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but like two giant monsters fighting, holy crap! I gotta go see this.
And I did. I saw it in D-Box, and I enjoyed it. I'm so sorry, Sully. But
No,
I will never see it again, though. I don't really care about it, you know?
it is a great movie. I love that movie. To be completely honest. Yeah, that's why I'm excited for this new one. Anyways,
Yeah. I heard it had a $15 million budget, which sounds not even possible from what I've seen from the trailers. So,
yeah. I mean, I've seen the trailer for this one, and I've seen the trailer for like the new Godzilla X Kong movie. I was like, I'm just gonna go watch this one. This one looks so much better.
yeah. I want to see Shin Godzilla. I heard that was really good.
It was really good. It's a really old school Godzilla movie where he's just generally just evil. Like he's not a good
I'm
guy.
down. I'm totally down. We went completely off track here, but we
It's
should do
tr-
a Godzilla episode. That would be fun.
yeah, it would be great.
Yeah,
Also,
okay.
also something that Star Wars never really did before is like, since like I guess the old trilogy was giant enemies. A lot of times it's giant enemy battleships. I mean, I do love the battleships. Like they don't really touch much on that in sequel trilogy at all, really.
Except in part 9 when they had this massive fleet of Star Destroyers
Oh
on
my
Exegol
god!
or whatever the hell place where I don't know, man. Like who are all these people in these fleets? Like what I it,
How did the Emperor Palpatine hide this many Star
ugh,
Destroyers
I don't
within the
know.
galaxy? They just came out of nowhere,
It's so bad, dude. It just
and then
sucks. But
yeah.
there's things that I like about the Rise of Skywalker, but it's so like out of all three of the sequel trilogy movies, the things I like about each movie, it's so small in the Rise of Skywalker. Like I like the way the movie looks. It looks cool. Like I remember seeing the trailers and they're like, "We have to go fight in the destroyed Death Star," and you're like, "That's fucking cool." Like, okay, like that sounds neat. Or like, you know, Luke bringing the X-wing out of the water like Yoda does in Empire. Like that was cool. I like that. I thought that was really neat. But like, I don't know. If you're gonna make Kylo Ren become Ben Solo again, just give him a couple of more minutes of screen time. He just showed up as Ben Solo and then fucking he's dead. That's it.
Yeah, because he didn't really do
Spoilers.
much. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he didn't really do much in Rise of Skywalker other than be like introductory shot where he's like, I have to confront a Palpatine. What are you doing? And he's like, I'm taking the helms of this empire. You're not suited. And then
Yeah.
and then that's exactly what he does. And then he goes on a hissy fit for a good while, and it becomes a race to just stop Palpatine with like Rey and gang throughout the whole
Palpatine.
movie.
I can't even. I've seen the movie so many times. That's the crazy thing. It's not a good movie, and I've seen it so many times because it's Star Wars. Because part of me just is trying so hard to like accept it into my brain as canon, and like every time I get to the ending where it's just this big open fucking lot, and it's just Palpatine standing there, and she does the little X thing with the lightsabers, and the lightning kills him. Like what? What the hell is going on? Where he's like, I'm all the Sith, and she's like, I'm all the Jedi. Honestly, dude, I was rolling my eyes in the movie theater so hard, so disappointed.
All right, so I'm gonna bring you back here. So, what you experienced with how much you hated the new movies, how would you compare that to how you originally watched the prequels?
Oh my god, the prequels I enjoyed so much more. To be honest,
No,
like,
like no, just because I remember you saying that you didn't really come out like not like thought rolling your eyes at the movie, like it
oh,
was like how you felt like being disappointed in those movies when you first watched them
um, well,
compared to sequel trilogy.
The Phantom Menace, I was not disappointed with when I saw that. I saw that a couple of times in the theater in 1999, and I enjoyed it. The only things I thought were weird about it were Jar Jar Binks, who just over time now has become. It's funny because it's ridiculous that he exists, and all the Trade Federation stuff where they're like, "Oh, there's a blockade. Oh, we've got to send these ambassadors," and it's like really boring for a little kid. Like, but then you have the pod race, the lightsaber fight. In my opinion, I like the Anakin and Obi-Wan one in Revenge of the Sith, but for some reason, I think the Darth Maul, Qui-Gon,
If I'm
Obi-Wan
being
fight.
perfectly honest, Duel of the Fates is probably the best soundtrack of Star Wars
It's
in
kind of
general.
peak
Oh,
lightsaber battle, for all the movies
the
ever.
this the music and the choreography, it just hits so many notes.
Obi-Wan fucking cuts Darth Maul in half. Like, it was. I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, they can do that? Like, nobody. I know Luke got his hand cut off, but nobody's getting fucking cut in half in a kid's movie. Um, But
Yeah,
Darth Maul is a really, really important part of Clone Wars and Rebels, and he's in the Solo movie at the end. But that's a whole other podcast. I was really, really disappointed with Attack of the Clones when it came out. Um, but Attack of the Clones also, in my opinion, is the shittiest looking Star Wars movie of all 9 of the main ones. It just looks like they use a Sony F900 camera with like Panavision lenses, and it just looks like a beta test gone too far, in my opinion. The movie looks like, I don't know. Like, I think most of the movie was shot with zoom lenses and just punched in, and it's like, ugh, I hate it.
Yeah, that's also just something like obviously since we come from a big film background, we can tell like a lot of nuances from like just like how the shots
Yeah.
work and what kind of cameras and because we understand the specs of the L. That's why we look back, even just like obviously Attack of the Clones, like what were they doing here? Why were they just
Yeah.
experimenting with a mainline Star Wars movie?
I know,
That,
like it's just a test. But Revenge of the Sith, they really nailed it. Like they used digital cameras on that, the Sony F900 with the Panavision lenses, and it looks pretty fucking awesome. Like that looks like a movie. I would never guess that they use. I mean, compared to cameras now, like that's a shitty digital camera. Like that's really shitty. That's like a broadcast camera that they use. Like
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they tweaked the hell out of it, but like, you know, that movie looks good. I would love to see that in the theater again today. Like that would be a fun time, man.
But yeah, so would you consider your disappointment in like Attack of the Clones just as equal or bigger than Last Jedi when you're watching the movie?
I feel like it was bigger in Rise of Skywalker. I was the most disappointed with Rise of Skywalker of all the things I've seen in Star Wars because they marketed that movie as the last movie in the Skywalker saga, and like that's it. You're never hearing from, this whole storyline is ending here, and like the fact that they just kind of fucked it up so much. It was really, and Lando was just popping in and out. Leia's dead, but she trains Rey via CGI at the beginning. Like, I don't know. I feel like we all just knew too much about things that were going wrong at that point with Star Wars. So, at least with the prequels, it was like brand new because George Lucas was just doing it, Although with Attack of the Clones, I think it's the only one he brought another writer in, Jonathan Hales. Why do I know this? What is happening? But yeah. What was your question?
I asked what you thought was more disappointing on your show watch.
I thought The
'Cause,
Rise of Skywalker for sure.
what would you say? Like, say if you were just watching the movies like I have, would you consider would you be equally disappointed if you had only just watched the movies, or because you have a deeper appreciation for Star Wars, you were just more disappointed in that aspect?
I think that Palpatine coming back really caught general audiences completely off guard. Like, they didn't know what was going on. None of us knew what was going on. That's the crazy thing. You could take hardcore fans to like really new fans to mediocre people like just watching the movie. I mean, it didn't make any sense because he wasn't in the other 2 movies, like the other sequels. And then they
Yeah,
showed the little jar of Snokes getting grown for like a split second. It's like, I don't know, man.
yeah, because they didn't hint at it at all. It was just Snoke was just an enigma, and then he just kind of dies, and then
Yeah,
we never find anything about it. And then all of a sudden, like all of our answers are solved because Palpatine's back.
yeah. It
And
was
also,
bad.
also a lot of people didn't know Palpatine was technically going to be back because if you weren't playing the hit game Fortnite,
Yeah, I heard about that.
yeah, they did the whole thing with Disney to showcase Palpatine and his Star Destroyers raiding the world of Fortnite.
Which is
So,
wild. Why would they
so
do
I,
that?
so that's a huge argument, rabbit hole there. It's like, is Fortnite canon?
Is Fortnite canon in Star Wars? Who knows?
What? Well, Peter Griffin and some shady are now in Fortnite.
I saw
So
that. That's very strange.
I'm honestly all for it.
Isn't Peter Griffin like ripped though? That's what I
Yeah,
saw.
he's ripped. I think they made him ripped because he obviously being fat, it has a bigger hitbox.
It's just not right. I don't know. There's a lot of questions. That's a whole other podcast right there. You just may have put that in the queue there.
Yeah, I know, right?
What do you think? I mean, you mentioned Finn, and I feel like I don't know if John Boyega is ever going to come back to Star Wars. I know that Daisy Ridley is, but I know that it's not considered episode 10, it's like just
Side
another.
story.
I don't know. Like, doesn't that sound confusing? It just sounds like they're a mess now. Like, I don't know. I like that there's an opening crawl. I like when it's like Star Wars. It's like you're watching a Star Wars movie, and then there's the title, and it's like it's the next episode. Like, that's what people liked. Like, I don't know why they're doing this. I don't. I know it's the. I know why. I know like they're just trying to get more money and do more shit. But like, that's the stuff that people loved about Star Wars, and I just find that it's really just all over the map now. Kind of a mess.
Because before, I mean, the great appreciation about Star Wars at the time, because there was only 3 movies, and that's
Yeah.
all we knew about the Star Wars universe, and then they didn't really get expanded upon until like small issues of comics, and that was only for people who are really, really into Star Wars at the time. And
Yeah.
then obviously expanded more with like the prequels coming out, and that was like the first new Star Wars content in like little decades.
Yeah.
And then further on in life, since I guess since LucasArts sold their rights to Disney and whatnot, and then there's still been a long setup for like a new Star Wars movie, and then they decided to make the new trilogy. And then ever since the new trilogy, Disney has really been trying to capitalize of shoving Star Wars down everyone's throats to the point it was becoming really overbearing. They did the same thing with Marvel, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like Marvel fatigue, like is real for Star Wars. Like Star Wars fatigue is real.
Dude, Mandalorian season 3, there's a couple episodes that are pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Lizzo and Jack Black are in one of the episodes, and Christopher Lloyd is in the same episode, and you're just kind of left wondering halfway through the episode, like, what went wrong here? Like, whose idea was this? Like, why did they let this happen? Because it sucks. And you can get away with corny, weird, cheesy stuff in Star Wars. I totally get that. But when we're just dropping celebrities in left and right for no reason on a TV show, I don't know. It was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, and obviously with that, just the way like, I mean, Star Wars has always been in pop culture minds for a while, even if you haven't even watched the movies.
Yeah.
And now that it's just become so much more in our audiences because after Disney bought it, it's hard to avoid anything Star Wars related nowadays, like Marvel.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough being a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
It
You
is
know what?
because it's mixed. There's really good stuff and there's really shitty stuff in there now. It's really fucked up.
Yeah, it's like a mixed bag, and it's kind of like a little bag of like those horrible jelly beans, or some of them are really good, some of them are
Yeah,
really
the
bad.
jelly bellies. You know,
Jelly
you could
bellies.
have a booger one or you could have a watermelon one. You know, but that's the problem. Before it was just the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and people everywhere would be like, the original trilogy is the best. The prequel trilogy sucks, but Revenge of the Sith was cool. That was it. Other than that, there was just video games and comic books and novels. And, you know, the sequel trilogy is really just feels manufactured. I don't know. It
It does
sucks.
really does really feel like pretty rhythmic, and it's kind of weird how they kind of took aspects of how George Lucas did the story, but wanted to incentivize on how Marvel did their kind of storytelling with
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
Like, I respect that they did some crazy shit in The Last Jedi. Like, I feel like the reason I don't love The Last Jedi is not the same reason most people don't love The Last Jedi. Like, a lot of people are just really don't like what they did with Luke Skywalker in that, and I feel like that's the reason why a lot of people don't like it. But I don't know, there's some stuff that's cool. Like, even though it's weird that Snoke goes nowhere, I've got to admit, like, when I first saw that in the theater at the IMAX, as soon as Kylo Ren like pulls Luke's lightsaber and just cuts Snoke in half, everybody in the theater lost their minds. Like, they just erupted with like, whoa! Like, it was fucking crazy that happened. And then they like have this wide shot where both of them go back to back fighting all the royal guards. Like, people in the theater didn't know what the hell was going on, and that was really cool because it was a surprise. But then it just kind of got all fucked up in the next movie, and just unraveled, and you know,
Yeah, because of the ending of Last Jedi, like with that aspect with like Rey and
Yeah,
Kylo, it's so interesting.
I
You're like,
know.
oh my god! And now I had like first you're like you think you like it's pretty formulaic and how like the movies are gonna go, but then as soon as like Kylo kills Snoke, it picks a whole trajectory and a change of power. Even with like how him and like Rey have that moment being like empathize with each other.
Yeah.
And then if Kylo being like, "Yo, would you like to join me?" Then obviously, like Rey is like, like this is so weird. I don't know whether to say yes or not because you're such a conflicting villain right now." Yeah. And then they completely sideline that to bring back Palpatine.
I know, it's such a waste. Like I don't understand, and I don't think we're ever going to hear about what actually happened with J.J. Abrams' opinion on what Rian Johnson did. Like obviously, he's not going to come out and be like, "Man, that guy really fucked the whole story I was starting with Force Awakens." And Rian Johnson's not going to come out of, you know, he's not going to come out and be like, "Yeah, J.J. Abrams really fucked up my story that I had going." But they both just ruined the entire sequel trilogy of Star Wars in a
I,
way
I
between
mean,
the two of them.
Ryan Johnson was kind of just like, well, if you don't get the movie, that's your fault.
Yeah,
He was kind of prestigious
he
on
totally doesn't give a shit. And
yeah,
people still think he's going to make Star Wars movies, but I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't.
so even okay, this is another switcheroo to this topic, but with how like the sequel trilogy ended and like the new shows, um if they close all the bridges to like a lot of Star Wars timelines that are going on right now, would you appreciate a break of Star Wars, like before? Because a lot of times feels like it's been nuts to butts ever since the trilogy's ended. Would you prefer a break like before or just as?
Yeah, I think a break would be great. Like, just don't make one for like 10 years, you know? But
Yeah,
I
because
know
like
they're not.
yeah, because like right now they're just been kind of just trying to milk as much of the characters as long as they can.
Well,
Uh,
I feel like that the new one with Ray that's coming out, that probably won't, like, it'll be 2024. Rise of Skywalker came out in 2019, so this
6 years
year,
ago,
what's that?
it's like 6 years ago.
Yeah, well, like I think by the time the new one comes out, it probably will be about like 7 or 8 years. So that's not so bad, but I don't know. It's weird. Like, what happened to the Rogue Squadron movie they were supposed to make, and like Taika's Star Wars movie? Like, what happened? Like, where is it? What's it about? Where the hell is it? They made all these announcements and didn't follow through on them. Um,
Also, with dead Star Wars. Oops, it's timelines. Uh, awkward. Han Solo's story went nowhere
oh
after the
man,
movies.
you know what? Okay, here's my opinion on the Solo movie. I didn't hate it when I first saw it, but then I hated it later on. But then after watching all of these other Star Wars series and watching Mandalorian and watching the Book of Boba Fett, I went back and Solo is way better than a bunch of the shit that we got after that. I feel bad for them. I wish they could have made one more with Lando. I heard they're still making a Lando film though. Like Donald Glover talked about that only like 2 months ago. They're still doing it. So I'd love to see him come back as Lando, to be honest. He was a great, in my opinion.
I
I
know, I
also just
agree.
love Donald Glover, so put him in
Same here.
anything.
He was like the perfect choice for that. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Oh, don't even get me started on how he got shafted on playing Spider-Man. He should have been Spider-Man in a live-action movie. That would have been amazing. I would have loved that. Fuck.
Have you? Okay, obviously, just gonna go. Sorry. Have you watched the new movie
The
Across the Spider Verse?
No, I haven't seen it. But I
I
heard
won't say.
about that. I heard about that though. But I mean,
Okay.
I wish they could have done like like Andrew Garfield style movie with Donald Glover instead. You know? That would have been really cool.
Yeah. Well, anyways,
Because
to reel it away from Spider Man.
yeah, sorry. We're back to Marvel again.
Yeah. So with Star Wars as it is right now, being everywhere, um, when would you like a new trilogy? Because I think the biggest aspect with new trilogy has been the appeal of like an entirely new cast, a new set of mysteries never really known.
Yeah.
And that was like the big appeal of the original, the prequels.
You mean like when they made like if they make episode 10, 11, 12 kind of thing?
Yeah, like it's entirely new main
Hmm.
characters like before. Like, what would be like a good time frame? What do you think? I think like either like earliest at 2029, the earliest I could think for me personally.
Well, let's see. The gap between Return of the Jedi and Episode 1. Return of the Jedi is 83. Episode 1's 99. So that's like 7, 9, 16 years, the gap. And then between Revenge of the Sith is 2005. And The Force Awakens is 2015. So it's 10 years. I don't know. I guess between 10 and 15 years. Like, they should just. What you're saying, I think, is a good gap. It's crazy to think it's been that long.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
gonna be almost 10 years since Force Awakens in 2 years. Well,
that's
almost.
fucked.
It's December 2023 right now, so technically I'm already in the new year already. I'm clocked out, all right.
Mhm.
It's gonna be like technically 2 years because if I say 3 years, it's not technically gonna be right.
No, I get what you're saying, and it is weird to think about. I feel like Force Awakens just came out. I think it's weird because people were like, this new trilogy Disney's making is going to be horrible, and then The Force Awakens came out and wasn't really that bad. Like, I thought it was the best of the three, in my opinion. It feels like Star Wars, you know? Um, like, I even forget that Han Solo's in that movie and he's one of the main characters, but I just really like Finn in it, and Oscar Isaac is great. Um, I don't know, I like that movie. But then there's just the Death Star in it again. They had to blow up, and that was so lame. So lame. I don't know.
Oh,
You know?
oh yeah,
Star
I
Killer
guess.
Base.
Oh my god, I know. It was such a weird like it's pseudo work from like Death Star just be like a planet destroyer to be like a planet destroyer.
Yeah, it just was like that. I think was the beginning of the downfall of the Disney Star Wars movies when they were like, it's another Death Star, except it's a planet, but it can blow up a bunch of planets. The whole system's now, and it's like, all right. I feel like it was a lot of work to make the Death Star, so now we just have a whole planet that's,
It,
I don't know.
it's so funny because the Death Star blows up and then they're able to get it working again,
Oh
and it's
man.
just barely hanging on, but it works still.
Oh, what you mean in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I love the incomplete Death Star. It looks so cool.
yeah.
But I don't know. Fuck. This is my opinion of all the Star Wars movies. I could do a review on what I love about each one of the movies and do like a sterling, everything's great, justify stuff, make shit up. Every single movie, all of the cartoon shows, and I could also do a review on what's really shitty and why it sucks. Probably about every single one of the Star Wars movies. But I'm just that ridiculous about it. Uh, but I can't stop watching them. I don't know what it is. It's like I can't. I liked Ahsoka actually. I thought that was a good series. I think you would like it, in my opinion.
Well, I guess I guess there's one thing we actually haven't talked on because we talked about a lot about my experience with Star Wars specifically, but I guess I'll just follow this up with two questions for you. Uh, since I already answered mine about Adventures of the Sith, what is your overall favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh man, I love The Empire Strikes Back. I actually have the post. Oh, I can't move my laptop because it's on a camera. There's a huge Empire Strikes Back poster right here that's lit with all of the little Burger King glasses. Because when I first saw Star Wars, it was when they re-released them in the '90s back to theaters. I think it was in like 1997. So I'd never seen The Empire Strikes. I've never ever seen it until I saw it in the movie theater. So the whole cinematic first time viewing of that movie was exactly how it was supposed to be, back in the day. So I got like the full Star Wars experience. Because I did not know that they could move stuff with the Force and actually do that shit. Because in the first one, in A New Hope, Obi-Wan just does like the Jedi mind trick, and he's like, use the Force, and they blow up the Death Star, and it's just kind of like an enigma. Like they don't really show you what it is, but I remember this scene where I fell in love with Star Wars. Is when Luke's dangling upside down in the ice cave, and you see the lightsaber over in the snow, and he has to like concentrate, and he like reaches out with the force and grabs it and cuts himself down. I just was like beside myself. Like I was completely blown away, and I was obsessed with Star Wars after that, just from that one movie. So
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
Empire Strikes Back is a great movie. Heck, I'm even wearing Captain
I
Solo.
noticed that. I was gonna say
Yeah,
something at the beginning, but I was like, he wants to
yeah.
talk about that.
Since we're on Empire Strikes Back, I do also love the movie. Also, just the way this, I guess this is the way they took the formula from Empire Strikes Back with having such a shocking ending at the time
Mm,
of being like a kind of a cliffhanger and how it kind of just looks like grim. Like
yeah,
how are the good guys gonna win?
totally.
Like it ends off like that. That aspect in Empire Strikes Back has been influenced in so many trilogies and movies going
Yeah,
forward. That it's just I think it's just such a good aspect of like making a movie series like that nowadays.
it's a
Because
good
at the time
hook. It's a good hook.
it was unprecedented for a lot of folks. That you're
Well,
like, what
because
do you?
you're looking forward to seeing the next one. You're like, what happens? You know?
Because obviously, like the next biggest thing I can think of like that is obviously Avengers: Infinity War that had such a huge cliffhanger, and those are the peak ones I can really think of that really put this formula to an actual amazing extent to how to really utilize the ending of a movie like that.
Yeah, you're right. Because it's crazy. They literally took like a massive movie with all these typical heroes arc characters, and basically just set them all on fire in the next movie. And I think that's what Ryan Johnson was trying to do with The Last Jedi, but he just really, I don't know, man, it irks me what they did with Finn's character still. Like he just I don't know. It's cool that Kylo Ren and Rey have their thing, and it's interesting. Like Adam Driver, I would watch Adam Driver in anything. He's an amazing actor. He's so good, and he kills it as Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren's my favorite character next to Force Awakens Finn. I thought he would have been my favorite character, but I just like Adam Driver a lot. Um, where was I going with this? I
Well,
don't know.
anyways, yeah, I do agree. Like Adam Driver, technically, honestly, I think he kind of carried the Star Wars the
Oh
sequels
yeah,
on his
easily.
back quite hard, and it was really sad the route they took him into the Rise of Skywalker.
He
I do
said he
kind of
was
agree.
down to come back though, if it was a good story, which doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, but whatever.
And I kind of agree with like how like Rise of Skywalker is much more disappointing because at least with like Last Jedi, you're like, damn, that was weird. Where do we go from here? And then Rise of Skywalker just completely derails that. And, like we're not even
I
going
know.
exploring any of the things that were presented in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And that just makes Last Jedi a worse movie because of it, because of the aspect that Rise of Skywalker did.
Yeah, like at least at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, they were like the first 40 minutes of the movie are just about unfreezing Han Solo and rescuing him. And during that whole mission, you find out that Luke has a new lightsaber he's built. And that Princess Leia has like been captured.
Yeah.
And Lando's been undercover for X amount of time. Like, I don't know. I like that they spent enough time. They respect the character enough to just, you know, whereas in the Rise of Skywalker, they just throw that the Emperor is alive. It just in the opening crawl with actually, it's just so bad. And
Somehow Palpatine returned.
yeah, and like even Kylo Ren, he's supposed to be on, um, oh my God, what's that planet called from Revenge of the Sith, where
I don't
Darth
remember
Vader
any.
gets burned.
I
Oh
don't
my
remember any
God,
of the planet's name. I
you
only
don't
know
remember?
Tatooine. If I'm being perfectly honest.
Okay, wait, I know this, I know this, I know this. It's called. Oh my God. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's supposed to be the same planet where Anakin gets, burned alive. It's supposed to be the same planet, and there's fucking trees on it. Does that make any
That
sense to you?
that is bizarre. What do you
Yeah.
like? What the heck?
Like, what was the point of showing the genesis of Darth Vader, the planet, for the opening of the movie for 1 minute, where Kylo Ren finds the Wayfinder? You remember, and he just pulls it out of the rock. It just shows him
Yeah,
holding it.
he's like he had an entire side adventure in between the movies. What happened
I
here?
know, like, and they filmed a ton of footage they cut out with like this spider with a baby head on it. They filmed it and they built them with like creature effects and stuff. It's fucked up, and they're not in the movie.
Wow.
I don't know. This is
And I guess it's go on.
no, I got nothing. You talk, or I'm just gonna keep going.
So I was actually I'm gonna make you keep going a bit more. If I'm being perfectly honest to you, because since you have such a richer story with Star Wars compared to me, because even the Spotify listeners and Apple listeners, they're not seeing his background. Like the right now, he has a bunch of Star Wars figurines and all this stuff. It looks so cool with everything he's collected over the years. But I just wanted to ask, obviously, just because I talked about my first experience with Star Wars, like how did actually you get into Star Wars?
Those re-releases in the 90s. That was it. I had friends who were just going to see Star Wars because it was always on TV, and I think they were the special editions where they added scenes in because nobody really ever did that before, where they re-released such a huge movie with new footage, especially with computers where they were like creating, like they put Jabba the Hutt in A New Hope, and he was not in A New Hope before. Um, and Boba Fett is in A New Hope now, but he was never before. Like, there's just a lot of things that they just stuck in there. So I remember my friends were going to see it, and I was like, oh, I'll go see it. It's Star Wars. It's kind of like, I like Star Trek a lot. So, but yeah, it was Empire after that. When I saw Empire in the theater, changed my life. Literally, like, I love those movies. And then the prequels were coming out, so it was really fun to get jazzed about, the first Star Wars movies in forever, because there was just the three movies. There was nothing else. So it was the fourth Star Wars movie we got, and everybody was so excited, man. Like, I remember that was the first movie I went to. My mom let me skip school for the first time in my life, and we were the first ones in line, and the line went down the block, like, for the movie theater back in the day. And we waited in the blistering sun for like 7 hours just to see this movie. And the hype was crazy. Like, I've only seen hype like that these days with like Endgame and Infinity War. I haven't seen it again since then.
I've kind of seen it like a few times. Not
Oh,
like just because the biggest one I've ever seen with this, just go back to my roots here, is Dragon Ball Battle of Gods was such a huge movie because it's the first Toriyama thing to come out in years. I remember going to the theater for that. And I've never seen a theater so packed before because at the time it
really?
was 2013. The theater was packed, and it was the first time I was screening. So even like the staff was coming in to watch this movie of a Battle of Gods, and then everyone was like telling them everyone shut up so they didn't spoil it. People coming in. It was just lineups and lineups inside the theater. It was crazy. That's
See,
kind of my closest my experience with that, other than like Avengers and Star Wars.
what in I feel like back when I was a kid, they did a lot more marketing too. Like, KFC had Star Wars stuff. You would buy your chicken and get like a Star Wars frisbee or a Star Wars Rubik's cube. You know, there was shit
McDonald's sort
everywhere.
of.
I don't know if there was a McDonald's one, but like there was. I have Star Wars Pepsi cans. Like, they made an entire line of collectible Star Wars prequel Pepsi cans. Like, there was shit everywhere, dude. Like, there was suckers you could get. Um, that were Jar Jar Binks' tongue that you could lick. It was really questionable.
Oh wow.
Yeah, dude, it was weird. Like, there was so much stuff everywhere. And the only other time I've seen that much marketing is Avengers. Like, there was Avengers stuff everywhere. It's a weird time right now because I don't see anything like that, period. There isn't anything. Like,
Yeah,
what do
there
you
isn't
think?
many. Yeah, there isn't many big franchises, obviously, like Star Wars and Marvel. They're kind of like the pedestals of stuff,
Like, there's
despite
still
not.
Spider-Man stuff when they do
Yeah,
those movies.
there's still Spider-Man stuff, but that's kind of still Marvel
Yeah,
and Disney,
and
um,
Sony.
and Sony in general. Yeah, yeah. So I guess from the way it sounds of how you got into Star Wars, that you didn't really much know much about Star Wars at the time, and when you're watching like rewatching the movies with the
Yeah.
new additions into it, like you got really, really into Star Wars, and then just so happened that there was a new movie right around the corner,
Yeah.
and you were just like, oh my god, like I can't believe like I'm now just appreciating this now. Why wasn't I on the board for this long? And then now with the new movie, like I can't wait to be an even bigger fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the special editions were a test bed for like the prequels to see how much CG they could do, but honestly, the CG in the special editions fucking sucks. It's awful. The special editions are terrible movies. I downloaded like the despecialized versions where they pull all that shit out. It's so
They're
much
really hard to
better.
find.
They
Very hard
are.
to find.
You got to torrent that shit. But they're worth it. They're worth finding. Yeah. What about you? So it was just the Lego games that started you, and then did you see any of them in the theater? I guess were you too young to be doing that back then?
I watched the Clone Wars movie in theater.
Whoa, you saw that in the theater? That's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, 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 yeah.
What was
So
that
that was
like? Was it in 3D?
it had like the old school glasses 3D,
That's
like the
cool.
red and blue.
Oh my
Yeah, that was
God, that's awesome.
yeah, that's like the only real Star Wars movie I watched in theaters at the time.
I
Like
didn't
that
even
was
know they were making that, and then it was out.
it was so weird because it was kind of one of those field trips your school does. Like, hey, we're gonna do a thing to celebrate school, so we're gonna go watch a movie. Like, whoa!
Whoa, your
And
school
then
took you to Star Wars. That's so cool.
yeah, because at the time they were like my school was doing field trips to a bunch of movies. First one was being like Spy Kids, and another one was gonna be Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and then one of them was Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Oh my God, that was in 3D. It was all the hype.
Yeah, it was 3D Wiz and all the hype.
I don't even know if there's 3D movies coming out anymore. I can't remember, to be
I
honest.
I actually I think it's just there's a lot of movies that like are for 3D, but not like built for 3D. They kind of just like I feel like they prepare a movie to be 3D, especially Marvel movies, because that's why I don't really like going to quite a lot of theaters nowadays. Because a lot of times, it's just 3D seems to be the only option. A lot of the
Oh,
times.
that sucked. Yeah, we saw
Yeah,
Doctor Strange in 3D, the Multiverse of Madness, right?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it was okay, like in
Eh,
3D, but I kind of prefer watching movies without 3D nowadays.
same.
It's just such a pain. Not for me personally, especially with glasses.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. I don't know. I'm sorry.
You can for the glasses folk. There's some people I know who don't mind, but it just the fact that you have to put like, especially I have pretty bulky glasses, and the 3D glasses are pretty bulky itself. So I really, because a lot of times it looks like this when I'm watching stuff. So it's really like I've just made my glasses crooked
So
from
sorry,
listening.
Sully.
Yeah, that's why
We'll
I
hook
never
you
really
up. IMAX, if you're listening, make him some glasses.
I know, right?
They're
It took
not
me a while to
listening.
really like it. Like 3D. I
I
mean,
like.
because
Were you-
Avatar really did make me like 3D
Yeah,
overall, like the movies.
Avatar
But
looked amazing in 3D. Even if the movie, even if you didn't like it, I thought Gravity was amazing in 3D. That movie scared the shit out of me. It was so cool. Um, yeah, shit looked like it was coming out of the screen. Um, I used to see a lot of IMAX movies in 3D. They were like the documentary ones. Like James Cameron did this one. I think it's called Ghost of the Abyss. I don't remember, but it was a 3D IMAX documentary. And Cora's going to sleep now. She won't be joining us,
well,
but she
I
did
guess
say
so.
"fuck Ryan Johnson." No, I'm joking. Go on.
Wow, wow, yeah, and I guess yeah. Well, as we were just talking about our past to Star Wars, yeah, I just that was like my first entry into Star Wars via the Lego games. It was so funny seeing this hear the story for the first time watching the movies.
That
It was
just
kind
goes
of
to
weird.
show you, though. I mean, like that's a Lego game got you into Star Wars. Like,
Kind of like the Lego games got me into Star Wars. They also got me into Indiana Jones.
really, Indiana
Yeah,
Jones too.
Indiana Jones. Yeah, because Indiana Jones were the first Lego games I played, but then it was Lego Star Wars, and I was like, oh my god, these Lego games are amazing. And
Oh, we should do an Indiana Jones episode. That would be fun. Although I don't have a lot to say about them. I
I
didn't
I
see
I,
the
lo-
new one actually.
I didn't see the new one either, but I do love Indiana Jones in general.
Yeah, he's great. I love them. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. So good. We should definitely do just some 80s stuff like that. Cora had never really seen Star Wars. I kind of like brainwashed her during the pandemic. I was like, I started watching the Clone Wars because she didn't see any Star Wars really. Well, she saw the sequel trilogy, but she had no idea what was going on. I took my whole family to see The Force Awakens, and they all loved it. And then I took all of them to see The Last Jedi, and they were like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "I'm so sorry." And they didn't go see Rise of Skywalker. They just didn't like it after that. Isn't that
You,
wild?
lo- you lost them. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
we lost them, but Cora just came with me to see the sequel trilogy for fun. So she was like, meh, they're cool. But then I got her to watch the Clone Wars, and then I got her to watch the prequels, and she knows a lot about Star Wars now.
Yeah, she was really critiquing me on mine though.
Yeah, man, she's seen a lot. Like, she knows all the characters, and the backstory they give to Anakin and Padme and Ahsoka. Like, Ahsoka's first appearance is in the Clone Wars movie you saw in the theater.
Yeah,
People hated her. She wasn't even in, like, a season or two of the series because the fans hated her so much, and now she's like the
A
main thing.
fan favorite.
Yeah, she's great now. Yeah, yeah. You could go down
Well,
so many paths here.
I guess this is a good spot to really end the episode.
Yeah, because I'll just keep talking. We don't want to hear me talk that much about Star Wars. It could be bad.
We'll dive deeper dives into Star Wars in the future, more specifically. We just wanted to showcase our general knowledge of where we're at in Star Wars. Obviously, he's had so much more experience than I have with it, and I haven't really delved that much into it. I was too much of a Dragon Ball fan at the time.
Mm,
But as of right now, I'm willing to explore more ends of Star Wars.
that's the
A
spirit.
bit more, depending, because there's just so much media out there nowadays. It's kind of hard to really pick and choose.
Yeah. Clone Wars.
However, I guess this is the end of the episode. Episode 6, Star Wars. We had a guest appearance of Cora very briefly. And yeah, remember to like and subscribe. Check us out on Spotify and Apple. We can always listen to us there. And I think this be any last closing words, Matt, before we end the podcast?
May the Force be with you.
Love you. Bye.
What?